All right, well, welcome to the Tape It. All right, well, welcome to the Tape It Till You Make It podcast.
Oh, that's in. That's it. That's our intro.
Yeah, whatever.
What is it? Tape It Till You Make It.
Episode 52.
53. No, it's episode... I don't know what episode number it is, but this is the Tape It Till You Make It podcast, where we talk about all things film, marketing, media, whatever we want to talk about, we do it.
Yeah.
I'm John.
And I'm Peter.
Yeah, this is Peter. And I'm the host, I guess. Although It's
Absolutely.
weird because you have 10 times the experience I have hosting podcasts.
And you have 10 times the experience I have making videos. Maybe 15 times, maybe more. Maybe hundreds of times more experience.
You know, I lobbed a softball for you to name drop your own podcasts there, and you selflessly
is the good one that I'd like to be seen as.
You passed it back to me.
I passed it right back. Listen, my podcast is called This Time It's Different, and you're going to love it.
Yeah.
But I'm jealous of the mise en scène.
Right. You don't have this beautiful
No.
set piece that we have here.
We're just doing, we moved to a work from home model.
Yeah.
Because my co-host,
Chris?
Chris?
You want to call him your inferior or your equal?
my intern, Chris,
Yeah.
lives in Toronto.
Okay.
And so I'm in Vancouver. Wherever am I? I can't
You're
remember.
also in Canada. Yeah.
Yeah, and so so we don't have we've been doing it over Zoom, and the timing works out okay.
Yeah.
But definitely don't have a nice studio.
This is a
rad.
perk for sure of having the office
Yeah,
with a
this
little
office is awesome.
400 square foot back room here.
It's perfect.
Yeah, it's nice. Well, guess what we're talking about today? Directing. Let's give people who don't know you backstory on who you are first.
Okay. So I directed Jurassic Park,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
new one.
Oh, did I introduce you as Peter? Because it's Senior Spielberg. I
Senor
believe.
Spielberg. I'm going by Senor now.
Yeah.
No. Okay. So what am I? I think I started in the comedy world most likely, and you and I go all the way back even.
Yep.
I wouldn't say maybe your early days of filming, but it was probably you were 3 years deep, I think, when you started doing some of our stuff.
You know, I was at the level where I would hey, I'm gonna use a video camera and make some videos.
Yeah, I love that.
It was the intro to filmmaking.
Yeah, intro to filmmaking. You were starting out teaching yourself. That's what it was. It was like you were at that level. Chris and I, basically the way I got started was Chris and I would move to Vancouver from UVic from school. We graduated, and we were we're not going to get handed stuff. There's different kinds of people. There's people that get handed things. There's people that get, and then there's people that have to make it happen. And we're not going to get cast as lead in TV show or whatever. So we just started going to the Fringe Festival and putting up comedy shows at the Fringe Festival. And so I had to learn Photoshop rather, to make our posters and our advertising stuff. And then I was well, we want to make some video sketches. So we started doing that. And I was okay, well, who's going to help us make them? We could use Windows Movie Maker. And then that, was kind of lame. So then I was well, I have Photoshop. I'll just download perfectly above board, pay for Premiere, and teach myself how to use that. And then from there was just a steady stream of you can just kind of do stuff yourself. If you, it was I would say we were maybe a year or two late for the do-it-yourself revolution. We were we were almost riding the wave. We were right there.
It was when the DSLR came out. That was a game changer. When it could actually do good video.
Totally.
Yeah, because I took media class in high school. That kind of I was always into it. I was doing BMX videos and stuff. So it wasn't out of necessity. It wasn't I need someone to do this. I might as well do it myself. Although it kind of was. It was BMX videos. I was making BMX videos and I would film them and then we'd go riding and we'd be make sure the camera's there so we can get some cool stuff and I can edit it afterwards. But then eventually I was just I'm only riding this BMX so that I can film. It was it surpassed it where I realized my true passion wasn't BMX,
so funny.
it was filmmaking.
You're just I just have this idea of you doing I don't know, BMX is probably a lot of the stunts.
Yeah.
So I have this idea of you upside down on a bike and you look over at your camera and you're that's a nice camera.
Or no, it'd be
doing?
ooh, this shot's going to look so good.
Yeah, the shot's going to look so
No,
good.
it was at the point where I was I'm going to do that crazy rail with like 20 stairs, and I'll grind down the rail, but I'll only do it if the camera's there. And I was like, well, where's the passion?
Yeah. Yeah. And then you realize, I know where the passion is. It's over here. It's over in the camera.
Yeah, and then I ditched the bikes because they hurt my back.
How did you get into? And then I remembered. So our connection was we just know each other for friends.
Yeah.
But then Chris and I were making this thing called Hardly Men.
Yeah.
And we had you shoot that with Mark Little and Caitlin Howden as well.
That was awesome.
A bunch of people were in that, and I still want to make it. I was talking to No Big Deal, Pete Holmes, the other day on our podcast, and we kind of half pitched it to him and got his sense on it and stuff. And it made me remember. I was like, yeah, these old projects, they're not done yet. There's a part of me that's like, it's not dead.
Right.
We haven't. That's been what, 10 years?
Yeah.
Since you directed that?
10 years? I don't know. Now I feel
Maybe
old.
Not 10. 10's crazy.
I bet it. No, it wasn't 10. It was a little less than 10. Yeah. But either way, the funny thing with that one was that was a out of necessity kind of thing where it's just like, well, we got to get this thing made. So if people don't know what that is, it was like we basically shot a trailer for a show that you planned on doing and used it as like a pitch, basically a pitch. Like, this is what the show could be. And it was just like a series of, it felt like a movie trailer.
Like
I wanted to make
reel.
it like a,
very
much. And that was funny because it was like that was like me and you and Chris and anyone else who was on camera. And that was it. It was just like, I think we recruited one other, one friend to hold the other camera.
Yeah,
we did a 2-camera setup.
Yeah. And we had
Joe,
I want to say Joe Jacobson or something like that was a sound guy.
Oh, really? I don't even remember that.
I met him through you, I think.
Oh.
I don't think he does sound stuff anymore. I gotta see if his number. I still got his number. I gotta text him.
If his name's Joe Jacobson, I have no memory of that at all. I must have been very close with him.
I think he had done some of your shoots or something. Because were you doing shoots by that time? Were you starting to direct?
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. I started directing. I always think back at this. I'm like, Jesus Christ! Like, I was thrown right into the fire of my first directing job because at the time I was like, I started as a video editor, so I was just editing. I was doing those BMX videos. I got familiar with editing, and I loved editing. I still do.
Yeah. But
then I was like doing the social ads for a video game company, a mobile game, Hothead Games. Yeah, shout out Hothead Games.
Shout out.
But like, so I was just doing their mobile ads, so like these little 15, 30-second ads that are just like motion graphics and stuff, and that was awesome. Mm-hmm. And then they're like, "Hey, John, like we're thinking about doing a live action one for this new little basketball game," and I was just like, "Well, I'm a director too. Like I could totally
direct,
do that."
Yeah.
And they just had like really, like a very surprising amount of faith in someone who like was completely untested at the time.
Awesome.
They're like,
awesome.
"Are you a director?" I'm like, "Yeah, I am a director." And I honestly think that's kind of what it takes sometimes. When you want to be something, you just say you are that thing.
Yep.
And then you are.
Yeah, and I think you also have to be fully aware that you could fall flat on your face.
Oh yeah, and yeah.
Like failure is 100% an option.
Oh, and it will happen too. You will fail 100%. I was lucky that those turned out like pretty good, but what happened was like they were like, "Are you a director?" And I was like, "Yeah, I can do this live action thing with a crew and everything." And they're like, "Good, we're releasing this little basketball game for mobile apps and thinking about getting Dennis Rodman to be in the commercial." And I was just like, "Oh, like yes, I will do it. Of course I'll do it." Oh man. And like, so I basically got to like write these scripts, and we had one day to shoot with Dennis Rodman. And I was just like immediately, I forget how old I was. I was like 23 or something, and never really directed much before that. Maybe a couple of like little personal short films and some BMX videos. Yeah. And then all of a sudden I'm like on set telling Dennis Rodman how to play basketball.
I remember, and I don't know if you were going to mention it or if you remember, I was your location sound guy.
Oh, I do remember that. But you're not Joe Jacobson. I remember you.
yeah, you remember me. So we had like an H5 or an H4 and a Rode NTG2 and like an old boom pole. It might have even been my old boom pole.
It might as well have been a broomstick.
It might as well. It was a broomstick, basically. Yeah. And I specifically remember a moment, like watching you directing and stuff, really enjoying that. And I think your style it's probably finessed, obviously, since then. But I took a lot from that in the way you directed, especially with Hardly Men as well. But this one especially, and I remember a specific moment where you're just trying to, I don't know if this is maybe like cut it out or whatever, but like Dennis Rodman like didn't want to shoot the ball.
Yeah.
And there was a way that you have a very non-pushy style. It's not like you're not like one of those classic. When people think director, they're like,
oh, they're like Kubrick's.
Just do it. Come on.
Yeah.
Throw that ball. Action.
Yeah.
You were more just like, oh, it'd be so great if you did though.
Yeah. Well, he's fucking Dennis Rodman.
Dennis
I'm not gonna
Rodman,
strong arm him into doing something he doesn't want to do. Oh man. So like, but yeah, fair to him though, because he was like a pretty good sport.
Yeah. He was.
The story. Oh, I don't know if I should. Fuck it. We'll tell the story.
Oh God.
So like, this is my first directing job ever. This is like, I was fucking nervous the day before.
This is a tape it till you make it exclusive.
Yeah, definitely. I was so nervous before. I don't even remember if I've told this story before, but the night before the shoot, so it's like 9:10 p.m. and Oliver, the director of marketing at Hothead Games, was like, his job was to like pick Rodman up from the airport. He like, part of his contract was he's got to get picked up by a limo and like brought to the hotel and stuff. Of course. And it's just like, it's like 9 o'clock. We start at 5 a.m. the next morning, and I'm just like pretty nervous, but I'm like, okay, I got this. Like, I got this. Right?
Yeah.
I got this. And then I just get this phone call from Oliver where he's just like, I just answer. I'm like, hello. He's like, oh my God, John, it's insane. It's crazy. Like, oh my God, like it's nuts. Like, he's gone crazy. And I was just like, oh my God, like what the fuck? He was like in a panic about how he picked up Rodman from the airport, and then Rodman's just like, let's go to the hotel bar before the shoot, and he's just like, oh sure, like you do whatever you want. You're Dennis Rodman. We'll take you to a hotel bar if you want to.
Whatever you want to do.
And then there was like, I don't know if it was like a scene, but it was very much like at some point security was called. They had to escort Dennis Rodman out of the hotel bar at like 10 or 11 that night, and we had the shoot at 5 a.m. the next morning. His call time was probably 5 a.m. And so I was just like already nervous. And then I get this like panicked phone call from the producer, basically just being like, oh my God, it's a nightmare. He's crazy. It's like, what do you expect? It's fucking Dennis Rodman.
Yeah, I was like, that's kind of what you hired.
Yeah, exactly.
That was the brand you wanted.
That's his brand. Yeah. Like if he didn't do that, you'd be like, oh, something's wrong.
Okay? Yeah. Is everything? Have you checked it on Dennis?
Yeah, exactly. So that happened. And then the next morning he was just like a little bit like grumpy, I think, just like a little bit. He's hungover as fuck probably, but like 5 a.m. anybody's kind of grumpy. He's just sitting there, and I'm like, hey Dennis, like we ready to do this? This is what we're gonna do. And he's just like, yeah,
whatever.
Yeah, and he just like almost didn't say anything to me. I like gave him this long spiel of like what we're gonna do and everything, and he's just like, okay. And I was like, all right, I hope we're good to go. And then the first fucking scene was like. What was the first one? There was like a scene. So I got to write these scripts, which was fucking sweet. So there's two actors, and one of them's like, hey, pass me the hard drive over there. And then he like goes to like throw it to him. He's like, just toss it over. And then Rodman comes out of nowhere and like rejects the hard drive and smashes it in the ground, and it explodes into pieces. And then it's just like, they're all just like in shock. And he's like, oh, sorry, like, old habits die hard or whatever.
Yeah, that's exactly the line. I remember that.
Yeah. And the first like, bunch of takes was just like, nothing, pretty much. It was just like a lot of.
But I also remember it's kind of slurry, like, "Oh, I'm sorry."
Yeah.
And you're like, what?
Yeah. And then he's just like, "How you doing, man?" He's like, "You good? Yeah, you good? You good? Yeah, you good?" It was just like, it was pretty fun. He just ad-libbed the whole thing.
Just did whatever he wanted.
And I feel like that movie with him and Jean-Claude Van Damme, Double Impact.
I haven't seen that in a million years.
Yeah, but you've seen it.
Okay.
I feel like I don't know what their experience was like, but
it's probably similar.
He really ad-libbed a lot of mine.
Oh my God. And those two actors, that was Mac Gordon and Brian Nothling.
Yeah.
I remember those two.
Yeah, they were awesome. Job. So yeah, I mean, we did it, and we got through 3 different spots in like 7 hours or something.
Yeah.
And it was such a tight schedule that like, again, like fucking out of the frying pan into the fire, like we had to shoot all of Rodman's coverage without shooting anything else. And then after he like left and was like on a plane going back to LA or whatever, we had to go and like later that day just shoot everyone's reactions to him. So it was like 3 different spots shot completely out of order. And like, what? It pieced together. Good enough. It was anyway.
Great. They were great.
Yeah, they were okay.
I know you're the host of this, but let me ask you this.
You're the host here.
Oh, I
told you over. Your experience. You take over.
Let me ask you this: are you? Let's say you could go back right now, or like they came to Nora Vera and pitched that project again. Mm-hmm. What are some things that you would have done differently, like aside from getting a different sound operator?
No, you know what? It sounded great. Thank you, Peter.
Yes.
Honestly, I'm interested to hear your take on the day, because I'm pretty sure I just blacked out. I remember nothing from that day other than him just like barely being able to get a line out. I didn't. You know what? I think with experience, like having, this is 10 years later. That was 2011 or 2011.
Woof.
Yeah, 10 years later. I don't know. I would probably just like maybe. You know what? I think the technical way that I think I would have shot it would be different, because it felt very very like static. It was shot very like kind of
just
like
set up your
like American comedy style, where it's just like, I'm gonna get a shot on a tripod and let the actors go. But then when your actors are like, Mac and Brian were awesome, but like you get Dennis Rodman, you don't know what's gonna happen. So add a lot more style to it. I think just like trying to get a lot more movement and stuff into the camera, which is super important for those things.
Like maybe the interception with the hard drive, you could have done something there.
Totally, yeah. I ended up doing that in like VFX, half of it, because it was like
you did?
really hard to get that. Yeah.
What did you do in the VFX?
I just like composited in a still image of the hard drive so it's supposed to like fly through the air in like dramatic slow motion, and it was like so impossible to get. So we just got like, I think Brian's reaction of like watching it go through the air, and then I just comped in this like hard drive floating through space in
No way. I don't think I noticed that.
Thank you.
Excellent comp work. That was always one of your strengths too, is like comp work, I think.
Yeah, well, starting as an editor too, you kind of know. I mean, that's a big help in directing too. You need to know what's possible in the editing room,
right?
As well. Yeah. So, I mean, you're also an editor too. I mean, like, what's your experience? What do you bring to the table as a director from your knowledge in editing?
Oh, great! I think I honestly like if I'm no like. I haven't made it as far as directing. Like if I've directed a feature film, I'll have all kinds of advice to give. But if I were to give some advice. Mm-hmm. I would say every director should edit. They should always start editing, I think. Yeah. Because I couldn't picture figuring it out if I didn't know how to edit. And I assume that other directors who are good, who have never been editors, must have an editor's brain or something. And when they watch movies, they understand why you need each shot that you need. Yeah. And editing has helped me save time on a shoot. Just because I know I can edit around something. Yeah. We did one. Are we talking about like particular clients or whatever? Probably not, right?
Well, whatever. You can name drop if you want to. We don't edit this. This is all.
This doesn't get edited. Straight. No. Even my like cough that I just did.
That's in.
For sure, sounds kind of like a pandemic cough. But I just have a regular cough.
We're like 8 feet apart from each other.
Yeah. Plus.
And. Yeah. Vaccinated,
baby. A couple of weeks ago, so I already have the 60% whatever.
Yeah, me too. I'm about 12 days in. I think
you're like good to go.
Yeah.
60% at least.
So we're gonna make out of the end of this.
100%.
It's gonna be safe. Yeah.
We haven't talked for a long time ever since you guys hired me. So I haven't had like that should be the other half of this episode is like a performance review. I just want to find out how.
Okay, yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so we did this thing for BCAA, and it was falling apart. But we stayed on target, but it was a massive target. The deliverables were out of control.
Yeah, I know the one.
You know the one. It was for a virtual conference. They wanted 3. No wait, what was it? Yeah, it was like 3 minute-and-a-half long videos or something, and like 7 other short videos that were sort of just like, not Edgar Wright's. What's the guy's name? Rushmore.
Oh, Wes Anderson?
Wes Anderson. He kind of just like a nice, steady, symmetrical frame with a thing in the middle and then like a funny narrator explaining that it's time for a bathroom break. Like, get up from your computers, it's a bathroom break or whatever.
The idea, I mean, you're downplaying it. The idea was awesome. And you got to write the script too. But
well, thank you.
It was cool. Like, props to BCA too for doing something that cool, because it's like this stuffy virtual conference in the middle of COVID, right? But they wanted to make it cool by having these videos kind of like interrupt the conference every once in a while to like keep it lively and fun.
Yeah, and I just did my version of like Little Britain, basically.
Yeah.
Welcome to. I did the voice.
Yeah,
I forgot. I did the voice. But anyway,
give me a little bit of that. Hit me.
Welcome. No, it's not like a Gandalf.
No.
Welcome to the BCAA. No, it was more.
It was younger than that.
Yeah, he was way younger.
You really jumped straight into Gandalf there.
I can't. I'm always a hair away from Gandalf. Yeah. If anybody ever needs Gandalf, if it's D&D time, I'm like, you got. You need a Gandalf?
Yeah. That's going to be the name of this podcast, by the way. A hair away from Gandalf.
Yeah. I'll be like, have you seen that new podcast, A Hair Away from Gandalf? What's it about? Don't ask. Okay. It's like, welcome to the BCAA. A little bit hard on the A there.
Yeah, no,
it was like my fake British accent, which you guys have a person with a British accent at this office, so I'm sure when he edited it all, he was like pretty offended.
Yeah, he was just shaking his head.
The whole time. What I was going to say was, before I get tangled up in the cable here, what I was going to say was, It was a very tough day because we only had budgeted one shoot day to get like something like 12 deliverables done.
Yeah.
And 3 of those deliverables were like full on videos that you'd want to spend time. No, there's 4 of them. Anyway, that doesn't matter.
There's a lot.
There was a lot. The point is, there was so many sacrifices that needed to be made because it's like, we're just not going to have time to get this shot. Do we need it? And if I hadn't come up in editing first, that would have been a much more stressful question, because at the end of the day, what I always try to say in my head is like, could I edit this?
Yeah.
And if I'm worried about the edit, then I probably didn't do that good as a director on the day. And if I'm worried, and if the edit doesn't come together, then it's like, okay, give me I'll do it. There's always a part of me that's ready to just do the edit. And I don't have to at Norvera, obviously, very talented, amazing editors. Yeah. But and so like my fears, even if I think we had a couple of projects that like could have used some more shooting, and we ended up doing a reshoot or something like that to get there.
It happens, yeah.
Yeah, it happens. But it is always a question of like, it's almost like it's not even that big of a job to do when you're on there on the day. Just literally close your eyes and think if you have the right shots. Like literally just cut it, put the timeline in your head, and be like, we'll go to this shot, then to this shot, then to this shot. Does it work?
Yeah, and
okay,
I think
let's move on.
That's a real talent too, to be able to do that, and I'm sure that helps with having a background in editing too.
Yeah, totally.
Like you can watch a movie and the story flows, and I think a lot of the time, if you not thinking of it as an editor, it just works, right? You watch something, you're like, yeah, the scene worked, and these people did this thing, but you don't realize how much fucking goes into that in editing to make it work like that, because that's what they always say about editing, is if you only notice bad editing. If you see the editing, it probably means it's bad. But if you don't see the editing, it's fucking amazing editing.
What was that overshot? Yeah.
Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody, the scene that they like ripped into the editor for. God. I feel bad for him for that.
No, I was gonna make fun of a Liam Neeson movie because it was like it went around
jumping the fence.
Yeah, the jumping the fence. Yeah. It was like not 30 shots, but it was like 18 shots or something to get over a fence.
Well, I mean, that's probably the director and the editor trying to make up for the fact that Liam Neeson's like 64 years old in an action movie where he has to sprint and jump over an 8-foot fence. And
I feel like they probably had the basic shot. And it just looked cumbersome and looked old and looked like he was very like tired.
Oh yeah.
So they just kept adding shots until they started to feel like it worked.
Add shots until Liam Neeson doesn't look in his 60s.
So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's good editing actually, because it seems like exciting. He jumped that fence.
Yeah, he definitely jumped that fence.
It seems like it took like 4 days to get that shot though. Like how many setups was that?
Well, I mean, it's funny we're speaking about editing too, because editing and directing really do go together closely. And you ever see those old like Van Damme movies where they just like do the same thing as the fence jump thing, but they like double impacts? Like when he just like gives that knockout punch and then they play it like 3 times, but it's not cut together like the fence thing. It's like, oh, you like that shot? You like that punch?
Here it is again.
Yeah, let's show it to you again.
Yeah.
And it's just like an instant replay in a movie, but you watch it and you're like, fuck yeah.
Why does that work? Out. Yeah.
I think it's a dance, because I'd imagine that if you tried it, it would very easily just not work. Like if you were making an action scene and you're like, I'm going to play this kick 4 times in a row, one of them in slow motion, you'd be like, you do it and you'd be like, what the fuck is this? It looks terrible. I feel like maybe the stars aligned for those things, or it's just like such a style that they're going for that it just worked.
Can't remember the director's name. He's like a famous asshole. Transformers.
Michael Bay.
Michael Bay. Yeah. He still does that kind of thing with the explosions.
Oh yeah, the
explosion.
Yeah, like The Rock too. It's in the Alcatraz movie.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I mean, to a certain extent, I think it's like, and you could probably do this on a film by film basis too, which is like develop the language that you want to like speak to your audience with. That sounds a little wanky, but like
it's to know your audience too, right? It's know your audience, know what they want to see.
Yeah.
Michael Bay makes movies for like 15-year-old boys, and so does
totally.
But there's that boy in all of us too. And like James Cameron does the same thing, where like he just makes these like cool. It's like you like helicopters and explosions, or like here's 40 of them in a row. Like he wrote Rambo 2. You know, the one that goes way over the top? Like
he wrote
Blood?
it. He wrote it, too. That's the...
he wrote it. So it's just like, it was his idea to have Rambo, like, go into Afghanistan and, like, mowing down people with a helicopter.
Was a horrible... Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
That was a little extra.
It was a far cry from First Blood because that's like an emotional, like dramatic piece. And then James Cameron got a hold of it and was just like, this needs more helicopters. But you know what? Okay, going back to that BCAA shoot.
Yeah.
Why was it so tough? Was it the schedule? Or I know that something I want to talk about too is like directing non-actors too. Because those people in that thing,
good call.
BCAA was like, we want our own, execs and people who actually work at BCAA to be in these videos. So it's like, I'm sure you were like, okay, but like, it'd be really good if we had actors.
What's interesting you ask about that is because you also did the same thing, same project and some of the same executives.
Well, different project, but same company.
Yeah, different project rather.
Yeah.
That was an interesting experience. To be honest, a lot of my work, even with Nora Vera before that time, I'd done that two-wheel gear shoot, has always been with comedians or other actors.
Yeah.
And I understand, that's the world I come from. I come from theater and acting. So like breaking down scenes and thinking about, the interplay of status versus like, what's this character doing in the scene? Like, why are they saying this line and how does that serve the greater purpose? Or how does that serve this other character? Blah, all that stuff. Out the window. I mean, the writing, of course, you can put all that in there, but it's gone when you have an executive who's like, yeah, great. And are we good?
Yeah.
Is this good?
It's 4:50. I said my words. What else do I have to do?
Yeah, exactly. And so that's been I'll take any advice you have because that's been a learning curve for me. I think it worked okay. I think it was good. Mike Lang, the DP, called me out. Everyone had a good laugh at me because I accidentally said, so after they did a take where they're like walking out of the building talking about like skipping work, and then they find out that like, and then somebody catches them, the CEO I think catches them like leaving work, and they're like, to do more work. That's where we're going. That scene, like this comedic moment, that reveal and that kind of like was just not quite landing. But there's also like take number 5 or whatever, and they're kind of like, they have like actual executive stuff to go do. So I'm like, I'm running out of time with these guys.
Yeah.
And I remember saying like being kind of happy with what we got. Like I was like, oh, that'll work. And I said like, oh, that's perfectly usable. And it's funny because and they all laughed and be like, oh, like, and Mike called me out on it. He's like, oh, it's usable. Like that's the meanest thing. I was like, no, I didn't mean it like that. I mean, it's a great shot.
But you exactly meant that.
I did. That's the thing. That's what I felt bad in my head. I was like, oh, that was my real thoughts coming out.
Yeah, like I can sleep at night with that take.
And it's just like I wanted to be like, come on, guys. Like I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but like we know why actors are important.
Yeah,
we know why. Yeah. Like that's proof in the pudding of why you need an actor.
Well, yeah, I've done a fair bit of that too, directing people who have no idea how to act too, and it's like. I used to think, so you always hear like, it's just like, as a director, you just don't tell people how to say their lines. Don't just say it like this. Like, what are you talking about? It's like, it doesn't work.
So give an actor a line read.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. But then I was just like, but when they don't know what the fuck they're doing, you got to tell them that. That's what I used to believe. I was just like, you have to just tell them how to say it because they don't know what the fuck you can't give them like subtle direction where they just don't get it because they're trying, but they don't like acting is a real talent to, like requires talent.
That's a great piece of advice I'm going to remember is like straight, like do away with all of the like actor nonsense, go straight to the line read if they aren't actors because they're not invested in the craft. They want to get the thing done.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously give them a chance first. Right. And if they're really not getting it at all, they might appreciate it. But if recently I've kind of strayed away from that where I'm thinking like my way of thinking now is really try to explain to them that they're not just saying lines. Like they're like, if someone is like, it's like edutainment or whatever, like some sort of exposition piece where you're like, they're trying to explain something. They'll just end up saying the lines and then just like, I said the words written down on this piece of paper you gave me. But it's like, you're not really like saying them to me, right? Like you need to explain this thing to me. Like I'm a person standing behind the camera over here or looking at this monitor. I have no idea what you're talking about. Explain it to me. Mm-hmm. Think about what you're doing. And a lot of people like the thinking an actor does is so crazy important too, where it's like,
absolutely.
They're like, I like you want to see them think about their next thought before they say it, or even it's even thoughts that aren't on the page, that it's just like, what are you actually thinking about right now? And I actually think that helps people, non-actors too. Like instead of necessarily telling them exactly how to say something, you're just like, explain to me what you're actually trying to say right now. Like say it to me conversationally. And the funny thing that comes up is like you might get rehearsal takes that are 10 times better, and then when they know the camera's rolling, because they're just doing it, they're like, I get this all the time too, where they're like, you know what I want to say? I just want to say like, hey, you know, this beer's tasting really good. Like, wow, this is awesome. It's like, but it's like, how do I say that? We're like, what are you talking about? How do you say that? You just did it.
Yeah.
It's like, and if the camera was rolling there, you'd have had the take if you were looking in the right eye line, right? So it's like, I think one of the techniques I use all the time is don't let them know the camera's rolling.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you sneaky roll?
Sneaky roll, like man. Kids,
yeah.
Sneaky roll with non-actors, sneaky roll. And because people freeze up when that red light goes on and they know the camera's rolling and the slate's in their face, like tail slate too. Basically do everything you can to make them as comfortable as possible.
Yeah.
And if they don't even know the camera's rolling, or like tell the crew to get the hell out, like close the set off and just be like, it's just me and you. Like, let's just go. Like I was just doing something yesterday with one of our guys here, and he's not an actor, and slowly, you know, like after you rehearse and it's getting like a little bit more comfortable, but you could kind of tell like he's not a performer. He doesn't feel comfortable with all these people watching him. They're just like, you know what, just like everyone else get out for a second. Let's just step out and it's just me and you. And if I could leave too and just have the camera in there, like imagine the realism you'd get out of somebody if no one was watching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's cool. So then you just like, you kind of poke Mike or Brian or whatever, you poke your DP and then like start rolling.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Tail slate after.
Totally, yeah. Yeah, you give them the little like subtle, like the wink and the nod, and you know, if you work with them a bunch of times, they know.
Yeah, they know you want to roll. I love that you started out and you were like, this is what I used to do, and I interrupted you and I was like, that is such good advice I am going to use, and then you're like, here's why it's not a good idea.
Yeah, but it really took a long time to realize like why that doesn't work, because I say things when I used to tell people to say things in a certain way, it was with my mannerisms.
All right.
And they'd be like trying to emulate me, emulating the character, and then they can't do it, right? Because you can't do that.
What I think I liked about it, what I took as good advice though, is actors want to be led in a way that they know that they can provide what they've prepared. Mm-hmm. Right, it's like I'm an actor. I prepare my piece. This character is mine now. You've given me the lines. You've cast me in it. So now I'm the professional that comes in and does this thing or whatever. So what I like about your advice with non-actors is like at least make the intention clear of what we're all going for in the moment.
Yeah.
Whereas an actor might not. You don't necessarily need to like.
You don't need to spoon feed them like that, right?
I was working on one thing where the director took my buddy. Ryan Beal, comedian in town, amazing comedian, amazing actor, but took him aside and was almost like pretending to be like a director from the 50s or whatever, and he's like, now you've had this job for a long time, and you know what and you see Ryan Beal, just the gears turning, is like, cool, will do, and then kills the line that Chris and I had written for him. Like, amazing, like we cast him because we knew he was just going to come in and do it.
Yeah.
But this director was like trying to give him so much subtext, and you're like, that's my job, right? He didn't say that, but oh, that's so fascinating though. I really like that idea of trying to get them as comfortable as possible. I mean, the same goes with a comedian. I always try to get like for comedy actors, try to get them into show off mode.
Oh yeah.
Because that's a little different animal where it's like, they want to feel comfortable, sure, but they also kind of want to feel like they're performing because they do want that edge. They want the nerves.
They want the crew to be laughing behind the camera and all that stuff. Yeah. Yeah, I want to hear more about that too, because you have acting experience and you've performed in front of people and like you're a funny dude. I want to know what that perspective is like as a director too. So maybe you as an actor, like what is it? Yeah. What kind of direction do you want to get from a director in comedy?
Oh, I like many comedian actors are probably like wildly insecure. Mm-hmm. So like we definitely need a lot of hand holding, a lot of like is that what you wanted? Like, is this good?
Yeah.
I love when people start laughing. And what's funny is like, I think even specifically within the union, it's like, don't distract anybody. When they roll, you like look away from the actors. Like nobody makes eye contact with the actors. And it's not like an ego thing. It's like, if you dare distract them, you know. And I'm always like, can you guys watch?
Yeah. So you want to get them into that performance mode where they like want to show off to a crowd.
Yeah. And I think to your point earlier too, it's like try to figure out, what did they call it? It was like the platinum rule or something. The golden rule is like treat others as you would treat yourself. But like the platinum rule is like treat others as you learn they wish to be treated. And so like, obviously that's not going to work with everybody. And with non-actors for sure, you don't want them in performance mode.
Oh yeah.
But certain comedians, I think, I would argue that works well. Maybe certain actors it doesn't. Maybe, maybe it needs to be they feel that they're not there. Maybe the looking away from them is a good idea. So I think that's the trick, is like try to take the temperature of the room right away. Yeah. I think that's like the biggest thing that I've learned as a director is like your main job is to keep the day moving. As long as you've done all the prep work enough that everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing, you don't need to create the plan on the day. Or you shouldn't be. That's a bad sign.
Yeah.
So your main job is to keep the morale up and keep things going.
Yeah.
And if people are starting to get testy, then like take a step back, take temperature, and be like, "What's going on here? Like, do these two hate each other? Like, what's happening? Oh, it's because I'm not explaining how much is left in the day, or like I'm not explaining why this shot isn't working."
Yeah.
Take a second, land the plane. Let's all get off. Organize it, get back in, and take it off.
Yeah, you really do have to control the set a lot too.
Yeah.
And in positive and like you don't have to just like, crack the whip and control everybody, but that set morale too is huge too. And you're amazing at that too. Like that's something I think I struggle with all the time, because I just sit there. And even if I love something, I'm just like, yep, all right, that's good. Like let's go to the next thing. Where it's just like I don't give people that feedback I think that I should be.
Maybe, yeah.
I get made fun of all the time for saying that was perfect. Let's do it again. It's like, that was fucking perfect. Amazing. Let's do it one more time. And then people are just like, was it perfect? I don't know.
I will admit to having an insecurity around, as a director, I know you were asking about acting and that perspective, but I'll admit to having an insecurity about knowing when to move on. I'm trying to get better at that because it feels, you get that sense that like, the buck stops with you. You're supposed to be like, do we have the shot? And you're like, I'd like to do it 17 more times. So I know it's
gold digging. You're just digging for that gold. Like maybe there's a big nugget right under the surface here. Let's keep going.
Yeah, exactly.
I always do that.
Or it's like, that's perfect, but there might be a bigger one. Like, let's keep going.
The grass is always greener. That's
exactly. And you obviously have to weigh that against morale, but also like how many more shots do you want today?
Yeah, right. Yeah, do you want to sacrifice the big setup at the end of the day for this like stupid insignificant one right now? That's a decision I have to make all the time. It's just like, when you're trying to move people along too, it's just like, you know what, that was like pretty good. I bet there's better ones, but like the one that's coming 2 setups later is way more important, and I don't want to run out of time on that one.
Yeah, exactly. So you're like, I better make the call.
Yeah.
And sometimes it is like a plug your nose and jump kind of thing. Like, we probably have it.
Yeah, I know. Okay, yeah. A lot of the time it's just like, you know what? Passable. Like, let's go.
All right, that was usable. Okay, let's go.
Yeah.
As an actor, I was actually quite proud of, and I hope you are too, of Bothwell Cheese.
Oh yeah.
And you were directing that, and I was the actor boy.
Yeah.
In that, and what I found helpful was knowing when you found it funny. Not like, oh, the whole crew is killing themselves, I'm amazing, but it's like the person who wanted me to be on the project.
Right.
Does that person like it? So you say sometimes that your feedback isn't great, but I felt pretty well guided. There, I don't know what it was like on your end. You're like, I just can't get this. I can't get this guy to do it.
Well, I'm your number one fan. You glossed over your Fringe Festival stage sketch shows, but those were like, I was your number one fan. I watched those things. I think you're automatically a funny guy. So
that helps, I guess. Yeah, like I see why it was funny.
Yeah, Peter and Chris. Check it out.
Check it out.
Your local Fringe Festival.
Yeah.
Coming soon.
I'm sure we'll do some live shows again.
I'll be there.
We did a live show. The last live show, slight digression, we did in Toronto, and I was flying back talking with somebody who was a psychologist or whatever, a mental health person.
Like on the plane with you?
Yeah, on the plane, sitting next to me, and just struck up a conversation with her. And we were like, this COVID thing is crazy, right? Like, do you think it's going to be... And they're like, I don't know. As long as it doesn't come to the States or whatever, we should be okay.
Yeah.
And then like a few days after we had landed was when the NBA canceled themselves.
That's
forever.
when the world knew it was real.
Yeah.
When the
NBA canceled, I was like, oh boy.
Yeah. Who directs those? The Peter and Chris, like when you're doing it live, like,
Yeah.
Is there a director?
Sort of. We direct ourselves most of the ways. What we used to do when you lived here was we would just put it together ourselves, like kind of directing each other basically. So we would give each other notes afterwards about what we felt. So it's all instinct driven.
Yeah.
And not to say that it's like we're amazing with our instincts, but it's just what we trust. So when it comes time to put it up, some stuff falls clean flat on its face. A fun story would be, so what we started doing was having a friend that we trust come in for the last few rehearsals to watch it.
Oh, yeah.
And give us sort of like directing / dramaturge. So they would watch it and be like, this part didn't make sense and this part did. So we were doing this thing where it was an early show.
None of that show made sense.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. My one note
chaos.
is you got to rewrite that.
Yeah.
And that's the problem too, is if you bring them in for the last few rehearsals, it's
too
repair
late.
time. Yeah, there's no
You're really
rewrite.
looking for like affirmation rather than feedback.
You're right. I didn't think about that. That's all we were doing.
Yeah.
Having friends that we knew would give us a few notes, but not many.
Just bring me over just to laugh at it, and I'll be stoked because I'll get a free ticket. I want to pay for the show.
You have to sit near any weirdos.
Yeah.
You never have to pay. You tell me that. I'll get you in the ticket to the Havana Theater. So one of the ones we did was like, I am trying to distract Chris and get him to give up his job so he can go on adventures with me. Because he's trying to be an adult. He's trying to grow up, and I'm just distracting him. So I run into his office one day, and it's all mime. There's no puppy there. But I run into him, I'm like, I found this puppy, and he just ate chocolate. Like, we got to save him. And he's like, what? Why did he eat chocolate? It's like, because I gave him some chocolate. He's like, why'd you give him chocolate? You're like, there's not enough time. We got to fix this dog. So I lay the dog out, and this, not Scrubs, ER music starts to play, and we do this mime surgery on this dog, and I go down and I give him CPR. Yeah. And my friend stopped the play in the middle. He was like, what are you doing? What are you doing? I was like, what do you mean? Because he didn't know where the head was of the dog. I was like, that's a pretty clear note to have. And Chris and I knew what was going on. We knew I was going to do surgery. We were going to do CPR on the dog because we know the next moment. But he was like, what are you going to do to that dog? I was like, CPR.
He's like, whoa, stop.
So it's always a good idea to have a director there to give you that objective eye. So it was nice to bring him in towards the end because our buddy Amitai watched it and was like able to see it as an audience member like you would. Like, it's kind of weird when you went to blow that dog.
Yeah, I like how he stopped it at least in the middle of it because otherwise he'd be like, I really like that scene. The dog blowjob scene was a little bit out of place, but it was good overall.
You know, Peter and Chris, we're known for edgy comedy. Yeah, we really do really dark, toxic stuff.
Oh, man.
But yeah, so definitely with our stuff, we would have friends that we trust or who were also directors themselves on some other stuff who would come in and kind of give us their opinions. And then mostly, because it's live, let the audience kind of fix it.
Oh, yeah.
And
listen
through
to
our
the
own
laughs are. Do you record it too?
Yeah. And people are always like, oh, what's the worst going to happen? They don't laugh at that part. It's like, yeah, that is the worst.
Yeah.
It hurts.
This is not a drama play.
Yeah. So if there was a scene that wasn't that funny and you could just tell there's like one laugh in 5 minutes, then we would feel horrible. So that motivates us to write all night and like fix it and then come back in with the changes in the morning and be
That's
like,
sweet.
there's a new scene.
That's a cool thing you can do with that live play, especially with just two guys that are just the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's like you just change it on the fly. That's cool.
And that's what I'm trying to learn as a director. I'm growing into doing for film is like knowing how to translate that live sensibility onto camera because you, like you were kind of alluding to, you don't really have that in film unless you do reshoots. You can't go back and be like, yeah, that moment wasn't as funny as I thought.
Yeah.
Now it's going to cost however many $1,000 to do it again. So have you ever had any shoots that your plan started to fall apart? Like you had to re-edit on the fly?
Yeah. I mean, there's always those times where you're like, I mean, having more time to do these things in general is amazing, but like, feature film world, that'd be awesome. You've got a week to shoot like one big scene or something.
You can really dive into it, yeah.
But like, in the commercial world where I do 99% of my stuff, it's just like, you've got a day pretty much to get everything. And a lot of the time you'll like start something and it's just like, it's like, it's not working and sometimes you don't even know why. And then I don't know. Like eventually, I think just working with the actors or with whatever whoever's there, it's just like I like to keep it collaborative too, where it's just like you know what, like, and I'll be honest too. I think sometimes it's like I don't really know what's working about this. Like, what do you think? What do you think this needs? Like, get people's advice because I don't want to like rule a set with an iron fist and not allow anyone else's suggestion in there. And a lot of the time, it's like if you just ask what they think it needs or what's not working, you can really collaborate and talk and like brainstorm together about what it actually needs. And eventually you can get there. It would be nice to have more time sometimes, but you just do it. You work at it until it works. And like, I don't think there's any like shame in saying that you like don't know and you want to brainstorm it. Like, it's like, I don't know what this is. Like, let's talk about what could work and what we could do differently. Or, the like the last take that I like to do is like, once you get one, it's like, when you're always digging for gold and you're like, I think there's a better take in there somewhere. Let's do it again and again. Once you get one that's like, you know what, that's passable. I like to just be like, just do whatever you want to do on this one. We've got the safe one. We've probably got 3 that are all the same, that are all pretty good. Let's do something that's just like completely different. Yeah. And a lot of the time, a lot of actors just love to roll with that. And they're just like, I'm just going to do something crazy. And I'm just like, you know what? There is no too big. There's nothing that's too far. If you think you're going too far, like, don't worry about it. Go farther. And sometimes you get gold, and sometimes it's just like, well, that was something. I told you to do it. You did it. That's awesome.
And you give that nice, like, all right, cut. That kind of cut where you're just like, oh, okay, we got that out of the system.
Yeah, that was fun. We got it. We'll delete it later.
I love that, because that's the other thing, too, is like, we don't have to use it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I love that. Some of my director mentors, and I'm sitting across from you realizing how far back we go, first of all, but also in my filmmaking journey, and maybe a little bit yours. But I'm just like, man, did I take a lot from this guy? Not to get too mushy.
Okay.
But I'm just like, holy shit, we go back. Like, I've taken a lot from you and your style. And one of the things I loved was that some people would call it giving up ground, but it's not giving up ground. It's like, oh, that's a good point. Like calling somebody out when something us fellas have been learning in the last few years too. It's like, give credit where credit's due. It's not all about us. It's not ego. It's like, oh, that's a good point. I don't have to be the only person with good points. Yeah. And I'm often not. So it's like, great.
Everyone's there to like do the same thing, right?
Yeah.
You're all there for the same goal, to make the best possible thing possible, from the grip to the director to the producer to everybody.
One of my other mentors, well, not mentor, but a role model of mine, Chelsea Haberlin, is a theater director, but I think she would be an excellent film director if she wanted to make the transition, if you're watching. One of the greatest things I saw her do was like, sometimes as a director, especially in theater, there's a lot of department. I mean, same thing with film, just different departments. But it was like making the decision is more important than making the right decision sometimes. So an actor will be like, I thought for this scene I could come in like this and sort of approach this character with like a little more aggression here or something, like, rather than just back off so much. And as a director, like, not 100% sure if that's going to be right, but rather than debate it, it's just like, okay, great, yeah, let's do that.
Totally.
Because in theater, it's rehearsal. You can always just be like, nah, let's not do that. But in film, you can just freaking delete the clip.
Yeah.
So it's like, rather than try to explain why you think that won't work, even if you're not sure, if there's even a small amount of you that's not sure about the offer that was made, let's just see it anyway.
Yeah.
It'll save you so much time.
Yeah, you'll spend more time debating whether you should shoot it or not than if you actually just shot it.
Yeah.
I think that's what a lot of people don't, people maybe just outside of the industry or something don't really get, that like, you can shoot so much crap, and it doesn't matter, because it only matters what you did get. It doesn't you can try a million different things. Like sometimes, when the client's like watching the monitor in the back and they're like, ooh, no, let's not do that. Like, don't do that. It's just like, we'll do it.
Why
and
not?
We'll just choose to not use it. Like we can shoot anything we want here. It's like, you never know what's going to work. And as an editor too, that like you're looking through the footage and you're like, oh, this one glance from when we didn't even know we were rolling, like that's the perfect shot to put in this little spot. And it's like, sometimes it works great. There's a thing that I always think about with a short film that I did where, like, with John Voth, the baby mobster thing. We call it baby mobster.
Baby mobster.
But there's like a scene. It's like a bunch of like hard as fuck like gangsters, and they're like all speaking German, and it's just like in this like Eastern European like kind of like warehouse, and the job's gone wrong, and the guy's bleeding out and everything, and you think it's really hard, and then their boss comes over, and their boss is like a 4-year-old kid, and he just walks into the suit on, and everyone's scared of him. So like in that thing, there was one point where John Voth, the like lead guy, was like he was like prepping for a scene. He was just like getting kind of like pumped up to go walk up to this baby and like be really intimidated by him. And he's sitting there, and the camera was rolling early, and he's just like sitting there like getting worked up, and like you could see him just like getting into character and everything. And
no way.
And then it's in the final cut. It's in the final edit. It was like, when I was editing that, I was just like, I really need a scene of him looking antsy, getting ready to walk over to like confront his boss, who's this kid that he's terrified of. And that like, when we hadn't even slated yet, he's just like rolling up, and the slate probably in the final cut, it's probably 2 more frames, and the slate comes in and slates it.
But you got it.
Yeah, and it was in there, and it like worked perfectly. It was great.
I love that. That reminds me of the Godfather. I think it's the Godfather. That famous apocryphal scene. I think it's real. I think this is the true story of the guy outside who's about to go visit the Don, and he's like rehearsing his lines.
Oh, I don't remember. It's been a while since I've seen that
The
movie.
story I heard is that they rolled on him, and he was running security detail for the film because the mafia was like, yeah, we'll provide security because we also kind of want to be around and make sure you're not making us look shitty.
Oh yeah.
It was kind of like a tense relationship or whatever, and one of them wanted to be in it, so he was sitting on the side like rehearsing his lines. And that moment outside in the garden. I want to look up if it's true. That's the story I've been told, is that they just rolled on him. Cool. Sneaky rolled on this guy, nervous to get the lines right to go in and talk to the Don. But it was actually like perfect because it's like, of course you'd be nervous to go see the friggin' like top mafia boss.
That's sweet. It reminds me of a scene. There's this old Scorsese movie called After Hours. That have you seen it? Not a lot of people have seen it because it's really old.
I don't know, yeah.
It's like one of his first ones. Oh, do you hear that in my throat?
That was nice. That was the ASMR version.
Yeah, definitely. So it's just like this crazy kind of like kooky show or movie where like this dude just has like the wildest night ever. You know, it's just like a guy, like everything goes wrong in this one crazy night.
So cool.
It's kind of like that, but there's this one scene where he's like getting chased by like a mob of people who think he's like a murderer or something. Like he looks like a wanted poster or something that's like similar to the guy. And there's a scene where he like runs in, and he's like being chased by this mob, and he's like trying every door, and then it's like the middle of the night, and he's trying every door, and they're all locked, and he finally gets through one door and like runs into this scene that's just like people having dinner, and everyone just like kind of like looks up, and it's really awkward, and he's like stops dead. So like the shot is him like bursting through this door in a panic, and then like running up to the camera and just stopping and being like, oh shit, like what did I run into? And apparently the story behind that is like, to get that shot, Scorsese like they had everyone set up in the restaurant and everything there, and had the door closed and had the camera ready, and he had the guy go down the street to a real restaurant where it was like a Denny's or some shit like that, where he like told him to have dinner, eat the food, and then run out on the bill. Like literally get up and sprint out of the restaurant without paying. And he did that, and then that ran straight into the shot. So they like rolled the camera, everything was rolling, and this dude just like runs off on his bill with like probably like the server chasing after him, and just runs straight into the scene. And like that's the take they used in the movie, and it was amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on I know you got to go soon probably, but I'm being such a host now. What's your opinion on those kinds of like what'd you call it? Not fake stakes, but like forcing. I guess you can't really trick non-actors, but with actors, you can always like give them that sort of external motivation. But do you find that like a bit hacky? Do you find it better to just get there properly?
No, I think it's good. I mean, the Scorsese one's maybe a bit elaborate. Like it was probably a 2-second shot.
Also, technically a crime.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know. I like it. I mean, I've done it a couple of times. I think it's cool. I don't know how actors actually think of it. Shooting Girls vs. the City, the web series, there was one point, it's not like really the same deal, but there was a scene where one of the characters would come to one of the lead's houses and like profess his love for her. So he'd open the door and it was raining out, and he's like, oh, dude, I love you, or whatever. And he was on rollerblades, and I was just like, he was doing it, and it like didn't quite feel as like urgent, and just like it was really like intense. And it's a comedy, so it's supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, just do like 17 laps in the rain around the street. And so I just had him, he was just like going on his rollerblades, just like going hard in the rain, like doing like all these laps. And then we rolled camera, and then he basically just, instead of like pretending like he's out of breath and like we wet him down. He was out of breath, and he had just been like sprinting, doing laps around the block on these rollerblades, like unnecessarily, like quite a few laps. Of course. And then he just like basically, we just rolled the camera, and he just like landed his like laps, went up the stairs, and just knocked right on the door, right into the scene. Kind of like that. I was definitely thinking about that scene.
Of course. No, I like it though.
But it like worked really well, and that was the one that worked. It was awesome.
I love that. I think I'm sensitive to that because I always think actors don't like feeling manipulated. But with him, it sounds like he knew exactly what you were trying to do anyway. Like, and he was like, well, as an actor, it's going to get me there to give that intensity anyway. So we're all on board with that.
Yeah.
Maybe like tricking people. Like I think there's some like stories of making The Shining where it's like a little manipulative, like a little like toxic that way.
Oh yeah.
And I think so it's like what you did is like the version of that where everyone's on the same page. And I kind of like that. I haven't tried that yet though.
It works. I mean, we tried it without doing it first, and it was like, well, not quite there. So I was like, you know what, let's just try this. Let's see how it works. Again, one of those things, let's just try it. Let's see what happens. Like the worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to get a little wet. And please don't get hit by a car while you're doing
Yeah, and we want you to be like that anyway, so that's good. Just not the hit by the car part.
Yeah.
Girls versus the City. That was good.
Yeah. You directed some episodes
we did,
too. It was
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, we both did. Yeah, that was awesome.
Okay, well, that's a solid. I don't know what that is. An hour maybe. That
just got into it.
I know we're really getting into it.
Part one.
Can
we do a part two?
TBC.
Because I still want my performance review.
Oh yeah, well, okay.
As a director here.
That'll be in the next episode.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah,
and it's not going to be fun. Let's just get really down to the nitty gritty. It's going to be like watching a stuffy boardroom meeting, but more crying.
Can we change the set and get a table in here?
Oh, maybe flip sides. Maybe.
And a light hanging above?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I can really get it in your face. Yeah. Swing it. Yeah. Where can people listen to this podcast? I think. Well, you know what? Take it away. Where can people listen to this? Anywhere they listen to podcasts?
You can listen to this podcast anywhere you get your podcasts. And on top of that, youtube.com/Nora Vera.
Yeah, we're recording it. If you're watching it, you'll know that there's a camera we're talking to as well.
Yeah.
We have a newsletter too. Go to noravera.com and there's a newsletter there, and this podcast will be on that newsletter too. It's pretty fun. It's a fun newsletter. What else? That's it. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, that was fun.
Peter, thank you for coming.
And John, thanks for having me on.
I think you should be on more of these episodes, by the way.
Yeah. Let's do it. I have them scheduled for a few more, actually.
They're worked into your calendar already.
Yeah, they worked them in.
Yeah,